suppose the biggest fear when you put heels on and you walk onto a stage that you're going to absolutely floor it. But I think we all made it.
Did,
I'm wearing flats, so I'm good.
We've had, yes, right, the clock is ticking. Thank you. I know we're the last panel of the day, so thank you for still being with us, and there will be drinks afterwards, I believe. Just a quick one, if you've got any questions, do put them through, because they will come through on my iPad, so ask as many questions as you want. Now, I'm going to move on quickly. You've had my intro, so you don't need me to talk much more. But I'm so excited about this. I've moderated a lot of panels in my time, but I've never been joined by 4 independent, amazing women at what they do. I'm actually really excited. We're all fangirling over the girl in the end as well. Just so you know, I mean, it's pretty darn cool. But yeah, I'm joined by 4 ladies who are all working in this field, and not only are they doing it because it's a passion of theirs, it's the job for them, and they're really making differences in the lives of not only elite athletes, but also everyday women. So I'm going to let them, how did we say this? I'm going to let them, each one of you, tell your stories, and you can tell me what makes you tick. I'm going to hand over to you, Davina.
Okay. Hello. I'm Davina, and I'm a personal trainer, and I specialise in pre- and postnatal training with women. I don't deal with professional athletes, but my, not argument, that's the wrong way of saying it, but my take on it is if the professional athletes aren't getting the support that they need, how is that going to filter down to your everyday woman when it comes to pre- and postnatal health, cycles while they're training, all of that sort of, that side of things. I have 2 children myself, so that's obviously a big driver of why I'm in this space, and having gone through that myself, having quite a lot of challenges, and then realising that I'm not alone, and if I'm suffering with that. I was an ex-professional dancer, so slightly different sport, but still a sport, I'd say. So going from that, then being a personal trainer for almost 20 years, and if I was struggling, how the heck, if I didn't know what to do and was struggling with that, then, it's a big deal, right? So, and I can see lots of people nodding, probably you've been through it yourself. So, so I think this is a really important conversation, and on to you.
So my name is Nirali. I am a clinical pharmacist. My area of specialty is cardiovascular disease. I'm also an advanced clinical practitioner and a senior lecturer at De Montfort University. I also host my own podcast called The Kickback, which is all around equality, diversity and inclusion in sports. It also has a health angle on it, because obviously I'm a pharmacist. But I also work for a charity called The Heartbeat of Football, where we do cardiovascular disease testing for fans in collaboration with football clubs. Our last big activation was at the Women's World Cup in 2023 in Australia, where we trained people how to do CPR and also tested lots and lots of people for cardiovascular disease. So what makes me tick? I love everything to do with the heart, and I love the fact that there is so much that is unknown out there, especially when it comes to female health. And that means that we've got opportunity. It means that we've got the opportunity to put in money and make sure that we're giving the best to our female athletes, but also females in general. Because as we know, a lot of the time, there are barriers such as women don't get their heart listened to enough because they have breasts. Can you imagine? That is a barrier because we have breasts. It's part of our anatomy. And what I do, certainly at my university, is I make sure both male and female students are comfortable with having to listen to people's hearts, but also women's hearts because they have breasts. And for the men, I have to say to them, okay, you have to say to your student, you have to say to the mannequin, it's a mannequin we have, and we say, and I say to them, I want you to ask her to take her top off. And so they get very uncomfortable. They get very uncomfortable with it. But what it means is they've got the practice they practice how to actually say it confidently, like as if there's something they've done every single day. Would you mind just popping your top off so I can have a listen to your heart? Is that okay? Simple as that. But I want to make sure that this is normalized. This is normalized. Females having access to the right healthcare is normalized. So that's what makes me tick. Over to you.
Thank you. Are we done?
Go for it.
Love it. So my name's Melissa, and I'm a performance psychologist. And my journey started off from playing competitive tennis at a very young age. And I was called the nice girl on court, which didn't fit really well, really. So I didn't understand what that really meant when I was young. And I obviously wasn't going to win if I was going to be a nice girl. So my coach used to say to me, "You've just gifted her another gift." And I was like, "Is it her birthday?" I said, "Yeah." But I had to learn like drive, determination, ambition and aggression and how to make that work for me to win. I was very young, in my early teenager years, and I really wanted to understand human behaviour, and something that I kind of grown up by asking a lot of questions about psychology, society, what makes us tick. And my coach really made me understand around an elite mindset and what makes them so different. And I was just studying pressure. Why were they so good at pressure? Because I wasn't good when I was young. And then that made me carry on, study it. I went to Loughborough University and I studied it and I carried on playing. But then I wanted to kind of prove myself that I wanted to be a great player as a senior player. So I went back onto tour again and obviously succeeded at what I wanted to succeed as a player. My life started to shift when my purpose shifted. So my purpose is, I loved winning at that time, and winning was so big for me. But when I started to work with like LTA national players and helping them to win, was something that I thought, oh God, this is giving me a great fulfillment. And I just carried on my journey as doing my masters and my accreditation in psychology, and then very early on in my career as well. This is another turning point. So when you're young, you're managing a lot of things, you're juggling a lot of things, and I just approached a financial planner to help me with my finances, because I wanted to learn how to manage money and how to deal with finances. You never learn that. And then again, I think this is where another thing that turned in my life, when he just said to me, right, there's something about you and I think you should go your own way. And at that time I was working with West Brom, Walsall Football Club and Bristol Football Club as well. I had 3 football clubs, and he was just saying, you've got to go your own way. So I went back home and I said to my mum, I'm going my own way, I'm doing my own thing, I'm moving away from these clubs. And she goes, no, what are you doing? You've got to get the experience, what are you doing? And no, I think that's what makes me kind of like where I am right now. I'm courageous enough to say no to my mum and did my own thing. And now 7 years on, obviously I got my accreditation doing that, and then built in my own consultancy, and now working with elite sports. So heavily football and tennis have been my biggest sports that I work in. Women's sports was my first entry. So I worked with Birmingham City Football Club as the girls and the women's side. And now I've stepped into the world of corporation, and I'm also now trying to make a difference with players that don't get opportunities to have psychology as well. So I'm building up my own foundation around that. So for me, it's not just about working with elite players. It's about making a difference, and I know that this is the area that is applied in high performance, because my role is performance psychology, but I massively believe it helps every single one. So yeah, I just want to inspire people throughout my journey with it and make a difference and change lives as much as I can, and that's my biggest passion, and that's what makes me tick.
Love it.
That's so great. Everyone is just amazing. I love it. I'm Sophia, Sophia Ellis. I am a GB powerlifter, 5-time British champion, 2-time European champion, and hold multiple British records as well.
Can we have a round of applause for that, please?
Thank you.
It's put the rest of us to shame. Anyway.
And I'm also a coach as well, so I coach the England team and also the GB team as well, and that's something that's really important to me as a female in that field, because it's always been a very male-dominated sport, so to be a female coaching at high level as well is really important for me, so that other women can also see that and hopefully also feel like have the confidence to go into those roles. My journey into powerlifting wasn't straightforward. I used to be a very high-level football player, but then unfortunately suffered with anorexia and bulimia for 6 years. So that meant that I was hospitalised and could not carry on with sports. So I went down the fine art route out of everything. So yeah, I suffered with that for 6 years, and I was just not myself anymore. I fully detached from myself. And I started, when I got discharged from the Royal Maudsley, which is the head of eating disorders in London, I was just like, what do I do with myself? And I got into training because I kind of like abused cardio for so many years. I used it as a form of punishment rather than actually for the benefits of it. And so I thought, you know what, I'll try weight training. It's something that I've never tried before, but I'll give it a go. And I just loved the feeling of being strong. And it was almost like, for me, that mindset shift of not focusing on what my body looks like, but more so focusing on what my body's capable of. And that's how I got into strength training, because especially with powerlifting, you're not judged on what you look like, you're judged on, can you pick that weight up or not? And that's just what I loved about it. So within 4 weeks, I did my first powerlifting competition, qualified for nationals in that comp, and I was like, wow, I'm pretty good at this. I was still recovering from the bulimia, but I found with the weight training, it still gave me that structure that I kind of craved, and especially with eating disorders, it's all about control, and it kind of gave me that control, but in a positive way. So I got into it, and I just loved it. It gave me that outlet, so I was like, yeah, I'm going to stick with this, and it really helped with my relationship with food as well. As I improved, I was putting so much work into the gym, so, you need to fuel yourself for that, and so then I kept going, now on the GB team and coaching, and I got into coaching due to my past experience and just thought, if this has helped me so much, it could definitely help other people. So now I do charity work as well. I work at Community Amateur Sports Club in Peckham, helping people, not just women, but men as well, get off the street and get into lifting, just have some form of purpose. So yeah, I think that's kind of what makes me tick, I guess, like just helping, supporting other people, and just showing that there's more to life as well than just what you look like.
It's interesting because just listening to you, you were a professional dancer. You've worked with some major FIFA, federation, big name federations. You've worked with elite athletes. You are elite athletes, and you also work with elite athletes. Are we seeing from we all think that because they're elite athletes, they're getting, female elite athletes, they're getting all the support and the help that they need, both from a psychology point of view, from a physiology point of view. Is that the case? Or, if they, as elite athletes, aren't getting a lot of support, how is the everyday woman that you're coaching in a gym as a PT, what are you seeing?
Well, they're not, because, and I can't speak for all of the sports, but we know that they're not because the education isn't there. And in fact, we quoted the same statistic. There's only 6% of, the leading sports science publications are even dedicating their research to exclusively female athletes. That's crazy, only 6%. And that's now in 2025. So if the education isn't there for the elite athletes, how is that filtering down? How is that helping them at their level? And, at such a great level, it's not. So there is a huge gap in the research, in the education, and that going across to the coaches knowing how to then deal with it. Even if they're women themselves, doesn't necessarily mean that they know or they've experienced the same. As women will tell you, we're all different, even though we experience a lot of the same things, which is half the reason that we're not studied the same, because you can't, men, no offense, you're much more predictable with hormones and everything, whereas we aren't. You can take two women exactly the same age and same background, and from week 1 to week 2, the estrogen's different. It's all different, and so that's why that research hasn't been pushed, I think, because it's too hard. It's too hard to gauge.
You seeing that at elite level as well?
Do you know?
It's only really in the last few years that we've seen definitely an increase in, support in terms of psychology, and even just how we were speaking about the heart. recently the GB team have been offered like free ECG scans and cardiac testing as well, but that's only just been in the last year. But again, it's not, we've not really seen that specific for women, especially as women are different. So it'd be good to see and encourage that and that education, especially around taboo topics such as I was saying earlier about incontinence with women during heavy lifting. It's something that's just not spoken about and there's not awareness around that, but it happens to so many women. And I think things like the education on that, because right now as athletes we're just going to other female athletes and discussing our experiences with it and having to do our own research on it. And I think it would just be, especially like we've had athletes coming back from giving birth, and how do they get back into that elite level sport after giving birth, and they've had to look to other female athletes who have done that. So I think it'd be really good to have that support around female athletes.
Yeah, and that just makes me want to cry, because that's what I spend my life doing. I'm obviously not doing it with the elite athletes, I'm doing it with your everyday Jane, as we discovered. That's what we call it now, right?
We do.
The everyday Jane,
we do
that's
now. So
that's a thing.
You haven't heard it before, you heard it here.
No, we're coining it. So it is making sure that, and that is what I do. I return them into fitness so that they aren't experiencing the incontinence, even though it's obviously lower level lifting, but still happen, and it's still, in my line of work, the saying is it's common, but it's not normal, and I think that needs to be far more at your level. Like, I would still argue that it's still maybe common but not normal. Why? Why isn't the pelvic floor cannot be trained exactly the same as every other muscle in the body? And there's just not enough research done at that level. And that it 100%. Needs to be.
Yeah.
It needs to be.
Touching on what both of you are saying, I think this is where we get actually a lot of difference between all of the female sports. Whereas, so you've said that actually you don't get any training when it comes to pelvic floors. We know that Chelsea Women, for example, football club, they have got a pelvic floor specialist that comes in and helps the players with their pelvic floor exercises. And that's pretty much with a lot of the football clubs at that higher level. Why isn't that happening across all female sports? It's the same thing. The fact that what really bugged me is that you said that, oh, look, they're offering this for free. It shouldn't be free. It should be part and parcel of what standard. That should be the gold standard. Yeah. It shouldn't be like, oh my God, this is so nice of them to do so. No, this is the standard at which it should be. You should be getting this. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, right, men's and women's hearts, the sizes are different. The sizes of the chambers are different. How much pumping action you get is different. Therefore, you have to look at the female heart separately to the male heart. Right, and none of that is happening. It's just not happening at the level that it should. And certainly in my practice, like we said, every day, Jane. I am referring my patients constantly to get their ECGs done, to get their echoes done, and actually, because I'm a pharmacist, a lot of pharmacists get pushed back from cardiology consultants. But the cardiology consultants, because they know it's coming from me, they know that I've done my due diligence and that these patients deserve to have an echocardiogram. They need it for a reason, right? You guys need it as part and parcel because of the strain that it actually does put. And I don't think that it's actually being taken into account. And that's partly because of that figure, 6%. We don't have enough research, nor do we have enough awareness or visibility. Why is it that the football clubs, the women's football clubs, are getting, the ECGs, the echoes, part and parcel, but powerlifting isn't? That doesn't make any sense to me. It's a visibility issue as well.
Sometimes it could be like the lack of value around this as well. Like that happens in psychology as well. So when it comes to having psychological support, it's like it's not valued as compared to the physical side of things, and that generally could be because the things around your mentality and psychology is not seen, it's intangible, whereas you can see physically what's going on. So that's one of the reasons, but the other reason could be as well is that how we perceive psychology and mental health, and generally when you say we've got a mental health issue, it's either associated with depression or anxiety, and you just kind of put your hand up and say, I've got depression. But actually, if you're going to the gym and making yourself physically fit, you can do the same with being mentally fit. So if you change that perception of what am I going to do today to become mentally fit, what does that look like and what kind of version would that be of me, then you're obviously thinking it in a different way. So I think there's a bit of reframing around mental health. And also I think it happens a lot in elite sports as well, but I think a lot of people are very much confirmational biased around their own experiences, and they will talk around, well, this is what worked with my mentality, and that's what worked, what my mum and dad did and what my culture did, and this is how we became mentally tough, so that's the kind of approach I'm going to use on you. And they lack that kind of individual differences in people, culture. The way children are built these days are different to how we were brought up. So that these kind of things play a part and play a factor when it comes to providing support in cultures.
I'm sorry. I've been sitting downstairs listening to these ladies chat, and I'm taking so much of it in. It's phenomenal. You know, we were having a chat earlier about. It sits in my mind when Emma Hayes said quite a few years ago when she was still at Chelsea, and she said, you know, the problem that we have, that it frustrated her, and I don't want to quote because I might have misquoted slightly, but she said, you know, I think there's a lot of male coaches out there that want to coach women like little men. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier. And, you know, she's one of the greatest female what she has achieved is phenomenal. And I think it needed to be done. I mean, we've all been athletes. We've all got these experiences of, I was saying downstairs earlier, I mean, I played women's rugby, as she just mentioned. And we all had to kind of prove that we were allowed to play. I was told many a times women shouldn't play rugby. This is, you know, quite a few years ago, showing my age. But, you know, I think that's where we just, from a psychology point of view, we just kind of blocked it and just tried to play like a man or be coached like a man. And I had a player that was on here last time, Eloise Hayward, who's GB7's player. She did a research on the effects of the menstrual cycle and ACL injuries, and how, you know, at different times of the month, your muscles are stronger, weaker, more flexible. And I suppose that comes into your training regimes, both from everyday Jane. And, you know, elite athletes. You can't have the same program, that's what you said before, for every single woman.
And actually, we need to just thank FIFA. FIFA are funding a study at the moment on that, aren't they, between the menstrual cycle and ACL injury. So it is being done, but very slowly and just not enough, really. You know,
should have been earlier, shouldn't it?
It should have been earlier.
Well, women have been playing sport for a long time, and we have been around for a while. So it's two things that haven't really changed a huge amount.
It's just because the data has come out more. People are talking about it more. Yeah. The visibility is more. You know, ever since the Euros in 2022, you know, people have now put their effort behind women's football, and they're putting their effort behind, well, actually, hang on a second, my favourite player just got an ACL. Do you know, that's why I got into this. One of my favourite players also got an ACL injury. I was like, why does she get an ACL injury? How dare she get one? Why isn't there more research about this? What's going on? You know? And it becomes a motivating factor, right? But now they are doing more research. I mean, you can see Brighton and Hove are also doing research into ACL injuries. They're also building a women's only facility as well. So all of that's starting to come out. But again, it's a slow burn. It's coming. But yeah.
We've got to keep pushing.
We've got to keep pushing. But I just think we were talking earlier about what part of your cycle are you the strongest, like when you can lift, right? And which I thought was actually really,
we all
really
had different answers.
Yes.
Which we find fascinating.
We did, because...
Which is why no one wants to study us.
It's true, nobody wants to study, but this is why you need a good sample population, don't you?
Absolutely,
exactly. Yeah, but I thought it was really interesting what you said about, you know, and also the time, for the psychological factor, the time in between each lift that you get. How do you then retrain your brain to go back to, like, right, I'm going to do this, which I found really interesting. So you've got two things there. You've got the physiology part of it, you know, and then you've got the psychology part of it, which is really quick. I don't know how you recover that quickly.
Yeah, it's very quick. So at, like, for example, I was saying how, like, at World Championships, for example, we're now on Eurosport, which means that our break times are shortened, and also the amount of women competing is also less. So we've got, say, a 7 to 8 man flight, woman flight, and then only 7-minute breaks, which is a 7-minute break in between each discipline, so the squat, bench and deadlift. And it's very fast paced because you've got to warm up in that time to your max weight essentially. And as a female, you've just got way more things to have to think about in terms of like, you might be on your period on your competition day. You can't control it, you've just kind of got to get on with it. And, you're dealing with the psychological aspect of that as well, where, you're not actually weaker, but you feel weaker and everything feels harder. And I was saying how even at the past, I've just come back from Germany competing at the World Championships last week, and even things that are just out of your control, such as the venue, for example, it was extreme heat, there was no aircon. So there's just so many factors that you've got to take into consideration. And then even more so as a females experiencing continence during the World Championships as well. So you've got to, where's the toilet? That kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot to think about and deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm going to drop in because I know, like, I've played rugby. Powerlifting is the same. It's not traditionally always been seen as a feminine sport, maybe? Are you seeing, how is it changing? I mean, I know powerlifting's now, for the first time, I think, females in August for the World Games out in China. It's the first time you athletes, your fellow Great Britain teammates will be competing there.
Yes.
I mean, events like that are a real massive showcase for athletes to be able to sort of grow their profile and grow the sport, I suppose.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, the World Games is essentially the step above the World Championships, but just below the Olympic Games. So it's for all of the sports that are recognised by the IOC, but aren't in the Olympics yet. In powerlifting, you have equipped powerlifting and classic powerlifting. Equipped, you'll see them wearing all these very heavy-duty suits, which allow them to lift more weight. I do classic powerlifting, which is essentially raw powerlifting, so you've only just got neoprene sleeves and wrist wraps and a belt. And this is the first year that classic powerlifting is in the World Games, which is absolutely huge for the sport, especially as it's always been known as quite a niche sport as well. So this is our kind of little step further towards IOC, getting towards the Olympics, but also just for the sport in general, that visibility as well. And for my fellow athletes on the GB team, I'm just so excited to see them lift on that kind of stage. Yeah.
I mean, when you talk, you must have clients that come to you, and especially women. What is the, how valuable is weightlifting and doing weights for women? Because I know you always hear this stereotype of, if I lift a weight, I'm going to suddenly bulk up and then I'm going to look huge. And that's just not the case. How sort of valuable is, both from a weightlifting perspective, training, and then I'm going to bring in the psychology part of it in a minute as well.
Well, I say it's non-negotiable for all women of all age, from 18. It's non-negotiable. Till you die. Everybody should lift. Everybody
listening to this, get in that gym.
Everybody should lift. Everyone should be challenging their body to that degree. Obviously, we have different levels. The bones, the bone density, good for our muscles, good for so many, our heart, everything. Every system in our body, it's good for. What was the question?
No, it's quite interesting because we were talking about this you're a personal trainer, but you're not trained as you are in the psychology side, but I know that psychology plays such a role, we only ever think of it really, I think, in the elite level sports, but of course in an everyday, Jane. It exists as well.
Well, yes, because I joked earlier that most of my clients would call me their therapist. But that doesn't mean they're coming to me moaning about their husbands. Some of them do, but it's more that space. Because I'm a postnatal trainer, they're finally being seen. They're finally I'm not alone, and this is normal, and oh wow, no one ever told me it would take this long to get back. And dealing with, we're talking about the visibility of seeing things happening. We want to see the athletes who have given birth and then coming back. We want to see, of course we want to see them. Wow, look, she's just had twins. I think you said someone on your team has just had twins and now they're back training. But, there is also maybe not in powerlifting and other sports, they do have more resources that they can draw on. We did also talk about having that for all sports. Why isn't there that team there already? The talking between the physiotherapists, the psychologists, the coaches who are trained in postnatal health. Obviously, this, my area is very different, but places like France have as standard, after you give birth, you get 10 women's health physio sessions, no matter what sort of birth you've had. Here, they say, and I checked this morning so I didn't misquote, it says from pregnancy to 12 months, we have access, a woman has access to perinatal care, and you can be referred to a women's health physio. In my personal experience, I've been back in England for 4 years, probably about 300 women have come through my classes and my private personal training. I'd say less than 5% have been referred to women's health physio. And of that 5%, maybe only half of them have physically even been looked at. So they come back to me, I'm like, so did she confirm that you have a prolapse? She's like, she didn't even look. How, I'll look, let me tell you. Like, I don't do that, that's past my, but so, I'm not here to bash the NHS, but this is the state that we're in. So if we're not having it at the ground level, what happens when the athletes, and their pressure is way higher than, I'm not saying the societal pressure isn't there for your average woman who just wants to get back in their jeans and everything, but the pressure to look a certain way, lift a certain, get back to your lifts, get back to your times and all of that stuff, it's a lot. So
yeah, it is a lot.
It is a lot, yeah.
If you really deepen it, it's women just want to be accepted and valued in whether
seen
it's
and
sport
heard.
or in society, really. And the biggest things that women have problems with is imposter syndrome. They feel they're not good enough. They're always compared to other women, and it's this body image, hormonal shifts. But this can come towards the culture that we are being brought up with, because you go to the beauty stores now and they're like, there's so many products, this is going to make me X, Y, Z look really beautiful, and then you're going to wear this sort of outfit that's going to make me feel accepted, and that's literally what women are they're doing everything and changing their identity and their personality just to be fitted in society and accepted, and that's really what it is. But working in sports, I've worked with males, boys, girls, and women as well, and there is differences between both of them. So for example, women, when it comes to self-criticism, they're very internalised. I'm not good enough, whereas men go externalise and say, you're the problem. The ref was the problem, or the coach was the problem. So there's different psychological factors as well. Like, men are very motivated by competition. Women are motivated more about social groups and belonging and creating that kind of culture. Women ask you so many questions. Men are very much, does it get me the result? Fine, I'm happy with that more than anything else, right? And there's this, a lot of talk about men don't open up or don't speak. Now, I personally don't have that problem with my clients, and I'm very grateful to not have that issue. But what I can say is the difference between working with men and women is that women will open more, they'll express more of their emotions, and will speak straight away within the first 2 sessions. With men, it takes them time, because they are almost demonstrating this mental toughness, and it takes them time, so it's a bit of prompting and asking them more questions, and they will eventually get to that point, because obviously they are living in a world of being masculine, and that's their masculine energy, to be dominant and be mentally tough. On the women's side of football as well, this is another thing that's interesting, is that women are trying to be mentally tough because that's what they feel like they need to be to succeed. That's what their image is. But there's definitely differences in psychological aspects of it as well. Like in culture as well, men are very much driven on the hierarchy, and women are more about belonging and creating a culture together. So it's, that's the difference between them all. But
I'm going to ask you all, I don't know if this will throw you a little bit, if there's one thing in your field that you could really change, you could see it happen tomorrow, what is, if you had to pick one thing, and you can all have a little think, what would be the main focus you would like to see change? The first person to put the mic close to their lips. can answer. What's the main thing that you're really passionate about and you want to see change?
I've got a list.
I know. Well, start with one. Go on then, throw me one. Well, first one that comes to mind.
Okay, I'll start.
You go.
But I've got two, and I'm going to rephrase.
All right, we'll go two. We've got a few minutes. We haven't got any questions through yet, so if anybody wants to shout out some questions. So I'm asking you the questions.
Yeah, let's go for it. So I think the first thing I've already mentioned is about how we reframe mental health and actually thinking about it. How can we become mentally fit? That's another way of reframing it. And the second thing is, I would say, is creating safe cultures. Psychological safety is so important for people to... So you hear these conversations now, it's becoming mentally... we should talk more, we should speak more, but no one's going to speak more or talk more if the environment's not safe. It has to be safe. Now you're going to ask me, well, how can we create a safe environment? And that's actually looking within ourselves. So it's like not judging on individuals and actually being curious and being open to why they think like that. It's actually listening and not fixing their problems straight away, right? And actually leading with vulnerability, it helps to connect. These kind of skills are important for us as individuals to build, to create a safe environment. No one's going to open up and start speaking out of nowhere. And that's not what mental health is. It's actually about creating psychological safety. I think that can make a huge difference in an environment.
Yeah, I think within my sport specifically, just I touched on it earlier, but women within those within those roles of power, so like in terms of coaching, for example, I always feel like as a coach myself, I'm always having to prove myself way more than my male counterparts, even though I've got maybe more experience or, have done all those courses, and I felt like I've had to jump through way more hoops than other coaches. So for me,
all four of us and probably the rest of the women in the room are probably all nodding.
And I think it echoes in even within workplaces. I feel like a lot of women are experiencing that as well. So that would be the one thing that I would change for sure.
So two things for me as well.
You can have two.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a few minutes.
First thing would be for everybody to be trained in CPR. Okay. The second thing would be, if you haven't had your heart checked, i.e. with a stethoscope, had an ECG done, go get it done. Actually, I should say three things. Men, don't be afraid to give women CPR, please, because you can save a life. Thank you.
Stop the mic.
We're done.
Okay, me last. I think, there's too many, but I think coming from the everyday Jane side of it, just the visibility of seeing professional athletes going through pregnancy and postnatal, seeing it for real and knowing that it's okay, and telling every woman that it's okay, that it takes time to heal, and just because we've healed on the outside does not mean we've healed on the inside, and it really does take, some studies say up to 2 years to really heal from everything, the hormones, the breastfeeding, the identity loss. I didn't even say that. That's a big part of what I do, just that, the identity, which, I'm not a therapist, but this is a lot of what I deal with, and I can't even imagine what it's like for a professional athlete to have that on top of, wow, I'm being paid. Like, my line to my clients is always, are you being paid to the way, for the way you look? No, so we don't need to worry about it. And just still pushing that narrative that women like Sophia are like forging ahead, showing women, me and my daughter who's 9, who I showed her this morning's video of Sophia, she was like, wow, mommy. It's incredible, that we've gone from skinny is good, we all need to eat less and be small and all of that talk, to no, strong is good. That's what we want. Strong bones, we want to look healthy, we want to be strong, we don't want to be falling over in our 80s and breaking our hip.
Then you come see me.
Yeah, we don't want to see you. No offense. Yeah, what's the statistic about women who break their hips? If you fracture or break your hip, you've got a 50% chance of dying in the next 2 or 5 years. It's a massive statistic.
Once you fall, you've got more chance of falling again. You've got more chance of actually getting things like infections happening as well. You're on a whole host of medications, and then they can also cause you problems, and it just goes a bit downhill.
And how do we stop fracturing our hips? We lift weights!
Hey.
That's literally the answer. So That's what I would change. All women have to lift weights as standard. Like, that's not non-negotiable. And men as well, but
No,
I'm here for the girls.
I mean, there's so many things that we could have touched on, and I know things like we talked about with the social media side, and, you know, we're not presented with enough real women, real people, having these proper stories, raising the taboos, discussing these things, and actually having the likes of 4 amazing inspirational women on this panel, which I'm in awe of, just having these conversations in front of an audience instead of, you know, towing some corporate line or trying to sell something. And it's just lovely to see that role models like yourself, your daughter, just coming out with watching the videos. And we always say this, you can't be what you can't see. And I think by having these conversations, by putting out more pictures, by getting more events broadcasted, we talked about the World Games, just really showcasing more female athletes of all shapes or sizes, of all backgrounds, and having those honest conversations, I think is the most important thing that we can do for, you know, the next generation. And I am looking at the clock, and it's already in red, so I'm going to get yelled at in a minute, flashing. So on that note, we are thinking of doing a podcast at some point, so listen in. We've already got one here, but there will be more coming. And if anybody wants to have another conversation or keep this conversation going, ask any questions. If any of you men are seeing the room going, we had earlier one father saying, my wife, we've got a 6-month-old baby, she doesn't know where to start. Can we get some advice? We will share all of their details. You can follow on social media, really good social media on all of them, and get all the advice you need, and it's good, honest advice. So thank you, and I'm going to shut up now because we've got drinks coming up soon. I know we've got one more speaker, and I'm going to get us off the stage. Thank you very much for joining us.